The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. We're in Tower 1. This is our new home. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters. We're thrilled to be here with you on this wonderful and beautiful Wednesday morning at the end of April, Autism Awareness Month, Autism Action Month, Autism Advocacy Month. We've had an amazing month, been to so many wonderful events and activities. We have actually three more to close out the month this weekend that we're going to be talking with you a little bit later on this morning. But I want to remind you it's Wednesday. It's my favorite day of the week because on this morning we have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh here with us during Ask Dr. Doreen. She's going to be answering your questions live in just a moment. And then in our second hour this morning, we have Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson, the Executive Director of Autism Care and Treatment Today. We've got two amazing guests during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Both of them connected to the autism community in different ways. Both have written fiction books in which autism characters feature very solidly. So we're really thrilled to be talking about these two separate books, one Through Fisher's Eyes and the other one More Heaven. So that'll be coming up in our second hour. But first, we want to remind you that our entire show is meant to be interactive. We want you to participate. I want to thank all of you for writing in. We had so many comments about Thursday's show, how many people appreciated the show. We had a plethora of amazing guests on Thursday. If you didn't check out that show, I want to encourage you to do that. We had Russell Lehman, who is calls himself the Autistic Poet, was with us. And in our second hour, we had a very special edition of Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy with Polly Tomey and Del Bigtree, producers of the very controversial film Vaxxed, that were with us. And so hopefully you had an opportunity to watch that. Raised a lot of questions for a lot of people, myself included. And we have an update from official statement from Dr. Brian Hooker that we'll be addressing along with other news in our second hour, Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. But I want to remind you that as you're participating in the show, there are lots of different ways in which to do that. Kelby is going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate, while I remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's many things to do, but one of the most important things that you can be doing is watch the show. You can watch the live show by clicking on the triangle. If we're live, it will immediately start wherever we are. Or you can watch the most recently recorded live show. In fact, you can cycle through. If you go to the playlist button and the top left-hand corner of the computer screen, you will be able to look at the 100 most recent episodes of Autism Live, which is really fun. But to the side of all that is what we call the live feature. If you will put your cursor in the box that says your question, all you have to do is type and hit enter. You don't have to log in. There is no password. There is no username. In fact, it's completely anonymous. It's completely free. We do ask that you put as much information into that box as you can. I always like to say if it's a really long question and you want to email it to me, please feel free to do that. My email is s as in Sam .penrod PENROD at autism-live.com. You can send longer questions to me there. All right, my friends, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Welcome and good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
So thrilled to have you here this morning. For those of you who are new to the show, Dr. Granpeesheh is a wonderful, I believe, the preeminent expert in autism in the world.
Thank you, Shannon.
Having treated so many individuals, not just children, but adults. And very small children. You've run the whole gamut over the last 30 years, right?
Yes.
In this field. And I always like to remind you and the world that I believe that you are a true visionary in this field, that you see things coming and help to prepare all of us for it. It's
Thank you so much.
a privilege that you share this hour with us every week to be able to talk to people.
Thank you very much.
And to answer their questions. We do like to remind people at the start of the show that there is no expert that in this format can give individual specific advice.
That's right.
So she can't write you a prescription, unfortunately. But in this format, if you give enough information, what you get to do is take a mini class with Dr. Granpeesheh about the things that you're talking about and get filled in on stuff that's so important that will help aid you in your journey wherever you decide to go next, whether you decide to go to your local expert and have FaceTime with them, or you decide to go to the library, whatever it is, you'll be better prepared for this conversation.
Hopefully.
Absolutely, and we know that to be true from the things that people write in. So we thank you for being
pleasure.
here and are thrilled to have you here. I mentioned at the start of the show that we've got a couple of different events that are coming up over the weekend. Notably, one of them is the Autism Care and Treatment Today Fun Run for military families. This is a 10K, 5K, and less than 1K fun run and a resource fair held in San Diego, right on the water. It's probably the most beautiful place on earth, quite honestly.
I love it. Mission Bay. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful.
This is one of my favorite activities. Act Today does a lot of different types of fundraisers, and this one is one of my favorites. It's a beautiful event.
It is.
It's
It's
really
very
nice.
early in the morning, I must say.
It's 7 in the morning for those, I think, who are doing the 10K, and I think it's a little bit later, like 7:30 or 8 for those who are doing the 5K. But all the information is on the Act Today website, which is having a few technical problems today.
I think they're back up though.
Okay,
the last
that's
I heard
great.
before I came in the studio was that they, at
That's
least
wonderful.
on mobile, they were back up. And the Kintera site, which is the place where you register, that is up.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a great run. We hope that any of you who are in the area, or if you know family or friends in the area, please have them join. It is still open. We have over 500 registrants, but it's a very large area, and we could double that if we wanted to.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of Marines coming, which is absolutely wonderful, from Camp Pendleton. A lot of Marine spouses coming as well, which is very nice. And yeah, CARD is very involved. We've not only sponsored the event, we're one of the co-sponsors of the event, but also our liaisons and our staff at CARD have raised over $20,000 already for the event. So it's really nice.
Amazing. And you know, it's really notable that the proceeds from this event go to grants specifically for our men and women in the military who have
That's right.
a child that's on the spectrum. And that's a really important thing, because often I know we've had people write in before and say, but TRICARE is so good, and part of the reason why TRICARE is so good is because you have consulted and gone to the Pentagon and talked to them about what is necessary for a family.
I'm really glad to hear that people would write in and say that TRICARE is good, because, yeah, I have a lot of contact with TRICARE. They're just really good folks. They, you know, all of these funding agencies are under various constraints, and TRICARE has their own rules, but never once have I really had a discussion with them about things like, you know, reduce hours. They don't. They're, you know, and they are the funder, but there's other managed healthcare organizations like Optum, United Healthcare, or HealthNet, who actually administer for TRICARE. And I don't know if they push back too much. They probably do. They're the managed healthcare. But with regards to TRICARE, I honestly have to say that they're very responsive. They meet regularly with providers. They listen. They do make changes that are to the benefit of the families. They actually are trying to do the right thing. So I really have a good feeling about it, although I know that there are some people who are also not happy with the coverage from TRICARE, but a lot has improved. And we're happy to support our military families anyway. You know, Shannon, with The military families, the prevalence is higher even,
Yes.
and then of course they travel a lot because they're deployed. There's always one family who's deployed, and they are relocated pretty often. So there's all these other additional factors. It's pretty hard for a child with or parents when one or both of them are deployed and the child is perhaps taken care of by the grandparents, or it's just a very tough situation. And
is.
when you add autism to the mix, it just makes everything harder.
It is, and I also want people to know, lest you ever think, oh, those military families, they have it so good, and they get, have a whole section of grants that are just available to them. I want you to remember that Act Today does grants for other things as well.
Of course, yes.
But
this is just one of the many things that we do.
But it's so important. If you were to have to pick up every 2 years, and you think about, you just got your services started, you just got the right team, and now you have to pick up and move, and what that does to a child, how you need programs to help that child connect with the community, and the copay situation for everyone who's out there struggling with copays, having to deal with autism. It's a very real problem for everyone.
Right.
But for military families, keep in mind that if they get behind in those payments and get turned over to collection, that is, they can be court-martialed, they can lose their status, everything can go away for them because they got behind in their bills. So we see military families that will sometimes, out of fear of that, reduce their services or stop services altogether. And that I don't think any of us can live with. These are the young men and women who are there to protect all of us. We need to give back to them. So last minute registration, hope you'll register. All of us will be there. Dr. Granpeesheh will be there.
Absolutely.
I will be there. Kelby will be there.
Right. And we've reached out now to the public relations portion of Camp Pendleton, and we've told many of our military friends that if the registration fee, which I think the registration fee begins at $20, is an issue, I personally will sponsor whoever comes to the race who isn't registered and who can't afford to register. And so all you have to do is just come to the race and say, I can't afford the registration, and I will sponsor it. Not a problem.
All right. There you have it. That's incredibly
It's a pleasure.
generous. That's
I love this race. Hopefully we can raise a lot of money for the families.
We'll have a good time. Come and see all of us. It may be your last chance to meet Kelby. So come and be there. I know. Okay, we're going to dive right into some questions because I have a lot that I want to get to. Okay. I'm starting right here in the middle of the page. Hi, Dr. Doreen. I recently got a job at the Home Depot with the sole purpose of accessing their insurance plan, which includes ABA coverage. We see more and more families looking at employers and going, who covers it, who doesn't? I noticed when I went on our benefits website how we now have access to something called Rethink, which seems to be like skills and IBT, but not nearly as comprehensive. What do you know and think about this Rethink program? Also, most people start off part-time at Home Depot, and you need to be full-time to get the insurance. And I have been working hard to prove to be a valuable employee, so I am offered full-time, and that time has come after 6 months. Once I become full-time, I have to be flexible in my schedule, which means I have no idea how I'm going to work in all the ABA hours my son needs. I am a skills and IBT user, so I have been doing all I can for my son, myself, but I need guidance and help as it is very overwhelming. Do you have suggestions on how to maximize getting all the ABA hours with a single mom who has to work 40 hours at any hours in the day and the evening? First of all, we send a hug, right?
Yeah, big hug, and just cheers to you for being such a dedicated and hardworking individual and putting in so much energy and doing all the right stuff. Good for you. Several things. Yes, I know Rethink. The original founder of Rethink was someone that I provided some training to, Bridget Taylor, many, many years ago. The product is okay. It's not bad. It's very, very small in contrast to skills. What I would, and actually just so you know, our skills group is in touch with Home Depot as well, and they are trying to get skills offered to Home Depot employees as well. Now, to answer your question, it becomes very hard, but you have such a compelling story, and I wonder if, Home Depot has a particular compassion for individuals with autism. And I think, Bernie Marcus, the original founder of Home Depot, also donated something around $25 million to Autism Speaks, which helped them open Autism Speaks in the very beginning.
Yeah.
So Bernie Marcus is a very involved individual, and he also, of course, has the Marcus Institute, which is in the Atlanta area. Now, what I would suggest you do is try to talk with your supervisors perhaps there, and I wonder if they can do some sort of like a fundraising or charitable type of thing for you, or perhaps some of the other employees want to volunteer time, because you have the tools, you have skills. We will provide you with supervision or guidance on skills, but the issue is you just need people. And if Home Depot was able to listen to your story, and perhaps people might want to offer 2 hours of their time here or there, you could easily put together a decent team. I mean, in the years past, we used to have, we would sometimes have families who were in very, very rural areas. In fact, one of my recovered kids did this on the recovered video, and they had all their neighbors and everybody in town just would come in and get trained, and they would each spend whatever extra time they had with him, and he, of course, developed and did really well.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely a possibility to kind of get a team of volunteers together, and I think that's probably the best way to go right now.
And I think that's important just to clarify, because it would be really hard for a single mom working 40 hours to do this by yourself.
Right.
The expectation
There's
is
no
that
question.
you would need help.
Right. But I mean, also, it sounds like you are now eligible for their insurance. So
Or
if you
close,
are,
yeah.
or close to eligible, you don't really need to be providing that service. The goal would then be, and I don't know where you are, but the goal would be to hire a BCBA and therapists. So that's what we do at CARD, and we have over 2,000, maybe 2,200 or so therapists, and what we do is we will assign a team to your child. So, and of course, since you're working full-time, then your child could receive services at one of our sites. And so all you really do is you essentially drop your child off. We then also schedule around that time to train you as the parent and to make sure you're involved as well. So really the main thing here is you've now accomplished a certain task and you've gotten to full-time, you're getting coverage, or you almost will. Once you get coverage, you will have the ability to look around and hire an ABA provider. So that should be your next step. Wherever you are, start searching for a good ABA provider.
I love that you are so modest, but you've worked so hard over the last 20, 30 years to provide a model that I think of as good, better, and best. In the best possible circumstances, you would be able to have CARD services and you'd be near a center, and the way you would find that is go to centerforautism.com, click on the locations tab, and see what's close to you. If there's something that's within 30, 40 miles, you can take your child, sign up, get services, take your child to the center, and that's the best model that there is. If that's not a possibility for you because you're too far from the center, there's something called remote services,
right,
where you can have a BCBA from CARD come to your house, train the people, and be working in that way. There are people who are local to you. They're coming to your home, working around your schedule. But then for people who can't do that, you put in place something so that everyone gets a shot.
Right, and that's skills and IBT.
Skills and IBT, and for those of you who think that's so overwhelming, you're not wrong, but folks like yourself, as you were saying, they either, if they have a way to fund and hire some people, or we've seen many people be able to do it with volunteers. A perfect example, and if Kelby has that to show maybe later, I don't know if we still have the Maddie video, used skills and all the volunteers from their church, and in where she lives, they don't call it recovered. They call it, the doctor has termed her in remission.
Yeah, that's
Autism
great.
in remission.
That's great.
Just with skills and volunteers from church. We've seen people do that, have a sorority adopt their child, and the sorority
That's
sisters
wonderful.
come in and donate however much time, and they have
What a
sorority
wonderful
meetings,
thing.
right? We've seen, I think there's one place at a Kiwanis club.
That's amazing.
Says we're going to make this child build our project. It's possible. It takes the kind of gumption that you clearly have to say,
Definitely.
okay, I'm going to go get Home Depot because I know they have ABA. That's the kind of parent makes that model work. But so you have good, better, best, whatever's possible.
And it just amazes me, this country here that we live in. It's just amazing how many people come together in groups to make such a big change in the world. So I hope that you can find the right group of people to just volunteer their time, and once you have that going, then you'll have adequate time to look around and find a really good provider.
I always say the one thing that I see consistent across kids who are doing really well is that there are parents who said, I don't care where we get to.
Right.
I don't care what it takes. We're just going to keep the Dory thing. Just keep swimming.
Keep
swimming. All right. We're going to take a quick break, and then we are going to come back with more Ask Dr. Doreen and more of your questions. Stick with us.
Hi everyone, welcome back. It's April, which means it's also spring. And what we're going to be doing today is making our very own Chia pets. What's cool about this project, it's an activity that you can revisit with your family as you watch it grow and change. All right, now that I piqued your interest, let's get to it. The materials we'll be needing are water, dirt, arts and craft materials, chia seeds, a container, and nylon. So let's get started. It's super easy. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take an old pair of nylons that you have, you're gonna cut off the toe, and what you're gonna do is you're gonna take some of your chia seeds and sprinkle them at the very bottom. We don't need too much, just a little bit. And then once I've got my chia seeds there, I'm gonna take my dirt and pour that in. And we wanna make sure that we've got quite a bit in there. You want to keep this tail. What this does is acts as a way to soak up the water to feed your little chia plant. So I'm going to take the bottom now. I'm going to tie this into a knot. So now that I've got this little guy, now it's time to decorate him. And you can decorate him however you feel like. What I did is that I made some little features out of felt that I'm going to add to my little guy to give him a face. Now that I've got them all decorated, I'm going to pour some water into my container and make sure my tail is all nice and soaked up in there. And here's my little buddy. I made a mouse, but you can always make whatever kind of creature your child finds super reinforcing. Make sure they like the little animal that you make so they'll want to come back and revisit him. As you can see right now, he's a little ball, but hopefully, keeping your fingers crossed, in a week he'll have some hair. With the snap of my fingers, we're gonna go through a week in a few seconds. And oh my gosh, this little guy has changed quite a bit. Can you see how? Yeah, he's got some hair now. You can have your kids describe how this little guy looks to their friends, and you can even work on body parts by having them label all the features that this little guy has on his face. So let's see, what does he have? He's got eyes, a nose, a mouth, and ears. What do you think will happen to him if I stop watering him? Yeah, he probably won't be growing any more hair if I did that. Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity. I know I did. Tune in next time, okay? And until then, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is here with us, and she's answering your questions live. Okay, I want to go to a question. My 19-year-old daughter also has Down syndrome. She's nonverbal. I'm wondering if she will ever speak. She says, eat, juice, mom. She says little words, but no conversations. And I have to say that this is something that we hear from a lot of people that have children in this age range. It's frustrating to me personally because they've spent a lot of time in school where they worked on labels and it never progressed beyond that.
Right. So working on labels is never going to teach you to speak, ever. But what's really important is she's speaking. She already has words. I can never really answer this question for someone who has no words, but given that she has 3 words, she can learn another 1,000 easily. And the issue is, so in other words, and it really depends on a bunch of different things, and how many words she'll learn has to do with more, what is her level of apraxia? Does she have apraxia? Apraxia really just means the muscle tone of your tongue and moving your tongue around inside your mouth. We are not aware of how many times and how many different ways our tongue moves when we make sounds. But she could learn to speak. Now, notice the 3 things that she says are eat, juice, and mom, which are in our language called mans. Usually there are things that we will say that we need. And so I assume that she says eat when she's hungry, juice when she's thirsty, and mom when she needs mom. So when language develops, the way that it develops, the motivation before that kind of leads to the development of speech for all babies, normal babies, typically developing babies, is expressing what they need. First, all they do is they echo. So when a baby is born, what they do is like around 1 or so, or maybe 9 months or so, you'll make sounds and they'll make sounds, and they'll hear things and they'll start trying to make that sound. And then they'll start to mand, which is they'll request things. And usually with typically developing kids, that one of the key things is they'll request things verbally and they'll point to them. And both of those things tend to not happen with children with autism, and both are very important. This one, because it's the very first sign of executive functioning, like joint attention, and vocalization, just because they never figure out how to make their vocalization be meaningful, or they don't realize that if I say this, I will get this, And so your daughter at 19 probably has a variety of things that she would like. Eat in itself is a generalized man. It's a large category. So you would have many different little men that would describe the things she eats. For example, whatever, the next thing you should teach her is her favorite food. Whatever her favorite food is, what you do is you will bring the favorite food out. Let's say she says eat, you bring the favorite food out, and you will hold it. You will not give it to her, but you will try to get her to imitate you saying the food. So let's say her favorite food is, I don't know, cookie. You will hold the cookie, you'll give her a small piece every time. You will say cookie, and she'll say cookie, and you give it to her. Now, if that's too hard for her, you can just start with key, and then she'll imitate key, and you'll give her the cookie, and then gradually you will make it cookie, and then she'll get that. That'll be a meaningful thing. She'll still continue probably saying eat, but then she will also start to say cookie. And you'll broaden that, and you can add to those things. So very quickly, you could teach her a bunch of things that she wants. The next step becomes a little bit more complicated, which is, there's 2 directions things go. One direction is you expand the manding to sentences. So from just one word, it becomes I want cookie, and you teach it pretty much the same way. It just starts out with imitation, and then you prompt and fade yourself. And then the other direction things expand is into tacts, and tacts are now when we use words to describe things rather than request them. So I see something, I'm going to label it, but that doesn't mean I want it. And that's what, if you think about typically developing kids, that's generally what starts to happen around, like, let's say 2 or so, and the infant is in the car, and they're like, oh, fire truck, daddy, it's whatever. They'll point to things and label them. that's the next whole area of development of language. If you want to read more about this, B.F. Skinner wrote a book a long time ago on verbal behavior, and it's very interesting. It talks about the development of language, and that's what we all follow in ABA. Now, it's not something, I don't recommend parents trying to teach their kids language all by themselves. Again, this is one of those things that you would need a team of people for. And when you have a child who's already 19, the level of frustration is often high. So typically, because she can only really express 3 things right now: eat, juice, and moan, perhaps. Maybe she has more, but what if she wants to go to the bathroom? What if she has pain? What if she wants to go out? What if she doesn't want something anymore? There's so many things that she's not able to communicate. So often what we do is we try to give our older kids some form of communication that's easier first, and then we pair that with verbalization. So the thing that is usually easier is the iPad or an iconic system. So you could use a PEC system, picture exchange communication system, or you could use a protocol, let's say, on an iPad where there are pictures of icons of things that you would want and don't want, including things like, stop, or I want a break, or whatever it is that she might want to express. Those things are easier in the beginning because it doesn't, why has she not developed language? Because the effort in producing this and understanding that when she says this, she'll get something is too much. It's too much effort, and anything that requires too much effort won't naturally happen in the environment. If it was less effort, she would probably develop it just like we do. So what you're going to do now is you're going to increase the reinforcer. You're going to heavily reinforce as she develops these things. But first, and you could go ahead and develop some of the mans yourself right now. I probably would give her more specific mans, different types of foods she wants, different drinks she wants, different people she wants. It's all pretty same procedure. And then I would get her an iPad and I would try to expand on the use of language, nonverbal language, but I would get her to request things she doesn't want, start making sentences about things, telling about experiences and so on. And then I would pair that with language. Pairing a visual with language always makes the language go faster. So now, that everything I said sounds really simple to me, but maybe not to you. So my recommendation is go on the IBT website, Institute for Behavioral Training, and go in the parent training section and just start looking at the things about MAND training. There's sections that specifically talk about how to expand language, and I think that would be helpful to you.
And Kelby just said somebody had written in. Kelby, was that in response to this question, do you know? Okay. They're wanting to know, what does visual impairment what does language impairment actually mean?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess language impairment basically means that you're not producing language or using language as your primary form of communication, that your language is somehow not up to par, and par would be defined as all typically developing individuals of your age. So generally speaking, we're always compared to the typically developing individuals of our own age group. And if we are doing things close to them, then that's great. If we're not, then that's what is considered deficiency and or impairment. And now this could take multiple forms. Like language impairment could be someone who has a lisp, all the way to someone who has difficulty has no speech. There's a broad array of things that would be considered language impairment.
Okay, great. And hopefully, write back to us. But I love in skills, because it's funny, as you were talking and you were saying all these things, and I was like, yes, that makes sense to me now. And of course it makes complete sense to you. But before I saw it in motion and watch somebody go from being taught a label to having it be conversational, it was fascinating to me. I think so much of how language develops in neurotypical kids it's miraculous how it develops, and we take it all for granted.
That's very
and we
true.
we don't notice the process by which it happens. And then if you've been around kids who are being taught that, who have any kind of developmental disability, you start to take that for granted too. Oh, this is how we do it. But I will say this, that if you get skills and do the trial membership, you will see the building block steps of, okay, this is what you do first, this is what you do, and it will all start to make sense. And you can buy one of the classes on IBT that's like $7
Yes.
for you to sit and watch an expert explain it to you in depth, step by step. Not that you didn't just do that, but I would need that 12 times.
I agree.
Myself.
I think the stuff on IBT is fantastic. We have started designing that stuff many years ago, but it keeps updating, and there's a lot of new material, and it's fabulous stuff. And that's where I would start, really, because you kind of get the idea of how to do manned training, and you need that. You really need to learn that. And once you have that, then you can go to skills. Skills will kind of have a written version of what the step-by-step is, and then also will give you all the exemplars, like the different requests that your daughter might want to have.
And the last thing I would say too is go watch the A Word, because there's like 52 episodes of the A Word, and you'll see when they start to deal with mans.
Yes.
And then you'll see when they lengthen the sentence, so that instead of just saying dog, he says I want dog, and then he says I want dog. And it's in a very condensed way, but you'll see how it takes shape, and it's done very well. And that's the A Word. They have their own YouTube channel, but they're on our playlist that you can look and see. All right, I'm going to move on to another question. Good morning, Dr. Doreen and Shannon. My 8-year-old is an impulsive liar. What strategies can I use with him to start being honest? He usually lies when he made a bad choice and almost always calls his choice an accident. We know some politicians who do this, right? Whether it's hitting someone, name calling, not doing something he was asked to do by an adult. His teacher has him write apology notes to classmates and teachers he has lied to, but he continues to lie to get out of bad situations. What would be a better consequence? He loses recess when this happens, which he really needs. And thank you so very much. It's a thing among autism parents that the first time our child tells a lie, we celebrate. Then we very quickly get to okay, I'm done with that.
How do I handle this now?
Mm-hmm.
I have there's a lot of different feedback I can give you regarding this, and some of it's not all that useful, but it's important to understand. So, as Shannon said, lying is a very, advanced skill. The reason it's an advanced skill is that it depends on the individual's ability to understand theory of mind. In other words, your son at 8 understands that if he says something, you can't read, you don't know what's in his mind. So that means your mind and his mind are separate. He gets that. And so therefore he can lie to you, and he can say an untruth, and you won't know it right away. Now that's a very advanced skill, and it is something that we're always very happy, because most of our kids have the reverse deficit, which means they think everything that's in their head is also in your head. So to begin with, that's a good thing. You should know that. Now, secondly, lying, like any other behavior, is a behavior. And so what you need to ask yourself is, what are the antecedents and what are the consequences, and how do we go about changing them so that this behavior no longer gets him what he wants? By lying, he is gaining access to something. Let's see, what are some of the examples? Let's say most likely by lying, this is what's called escape maintained. So he will lie about something and he will escape a particular punishment, which I don't know what it would be depending on the scenario and depending what he lied about. The interesting thing is that apparently he does get a particular consequence, which is he loses going to recess. Now, it may be for us that going to recess is something we feel is a reinforcer for him, but maybe it's not really a reinforcer for him, and we're just assuming that it's a reinforcer for him because regardless of the fact that he loses recess, he's still lying. Now, there's another aspect to it, which is he may lie now and he may lose recess an hour later. Now, when we lose things or when we receive a punishment, when we lose reinforcers or when we receive a punishment, if that occurs after a long time, we don't connect it. We don't understand that I lost recess because I lied an hour ago. It just doesn't work that way. So often punishments or removal of reinforcer has to occur right after the event took place. So what you might want to do is you first of all have to identify okay, so there's two things you have to do. First, you should identify the scenarios under which he lies. So like just take a diary and take a journal and list the next 10 times that he lies, okay? And then when you're doing this, please list he lied, this was the lie, and then list what happened right before it, in other words, what motivated the lie, or what environmental conditions were in place, and then what happened right after it. In other words, did somebody try to punish him? Did he get away with it? Did he get access to something that he wanted? For instance, in this scenario, he might lie and he will get access to, I don't know, something. He enjoys hitting someone, he'll get attention, or he will, feel relieved that he was able to get out of something. Whatever it is more valuable to him than recess. Or he doesn't really realize that he's going to lose recess. Losing recess has anything to do with his lying. It's either that the loss of the reinforcer is not connecting in his head, or that he couldn't care less about the reinforcer. It's one or the other. And what's really important, like any behavior, you have to make sure that a very powerful reinforcer is lost immediately, and also that an alternative behavior is put in place. So in other words, when you make that journal, you'll be able to look back and say, oh, he seems to lie when he doesn't want to do something, or he seems to lie most of the time around this person, or whatever it is that you find. You'll need to make sure you give him alternative ways of communicating. And for instance, maybe he also needs to learn what really is an accident versus what is a lie. Clearly, he doesn't know that he makes an active choice. It's a choice. It can't be an accident. So, that involves a little bit of a higher level of cognitive learning. But to begin with, what I would ask you to do is I would keep a journal, and then I would start to look at some of the consequences that are occurring and whether or not he really is losing a reinforcer when he lies, and whether or not that loss of reinforcer is occurring right after him lying. First, he needs to make that connection, and I guarantee you, if he understands that he loses a reinforcer every time he lies, he'll start to not lie because it's just not worth it for him. Make sure the reinforcer is of value. So, having said all that, if that's extremely difficult for you, I believe there is a section in skills under the cognition curriculum for lying. The lesson is just, I think, called lying, telling lies, and that might give you some guidance as well.
I think it might be white lies.
White lies, yeah.
And just
I can't
as
believe you know the names of all the lessons.
Well, not all, but some of them I do. And one extra thing, because I know we have some questions coming up about IEPs too, just as a thing for everybody to know, losing recess as a consequence is not something that should ever happen with any child ever. It should be illegal in every state. I don't want to jump and say that it is,
right.
But if you look very quickly at how many hours of physical education your child is supposed to have, almost always in grade school, recess is folded into that, and so it's like taking instruction away.
Right.
So you can if that's happening to you, that your child is having that as a consequence, and you don't want that to happen, you just go in and say how many hours of
Yes.
recess, and they'll stop that. It shouldn't be happening. That it's not good for our kids. If you're really having a hard time with that, it also comes under social.
Right.
You shouldn't be losing recess. But in this particular instance, it sounds like it's possible that maybe that's what he wants. And we don't want to have that happen either. Okay, we had a follow-up. I can't get things to work on my iPad because it's that kind of a day, so I had to resort to my phone. We had a follow-up about the Home Depot question. They wrote in and said, thank you for answering my question about Rethink and Home Depot. Who can I write to at Home Depot to encourage skills to be a part of our benefits, as I'm sure many associates would utilize it and benefit from it? Would you have a suggestion, or should they reach out to Skills to ask who?
No, you should definitely reach out to Skills as well, because Skills can give you a lot of materials, and talk to the director of Skills here, Eliana Ferreira, and she'll give you a lot of material. But the person you talk to in Home Depot is someone in your HR department. It's a benefit for employees, so that falls under human resources. So I would go to the HR department and I would say, I have a child with autism, you have this program, this is another program I feel would be very good. In fact, I told Eliana when we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, I suggested that we do whatever it takes basically to get some sort of arrangements with Home Depot, which might include us offering them services for free for a long time. So, you know, we're on it. We really want to provide this for Home Depot families.
There you go. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back with more questions. Stick with us.
It's every parent's desire for their child to have a great start in life. Yet there is a condition affecting more children's lives than pediatric cancer, diabetes, and AIDS combined. Autism strikes 1 in every 150 children.
Today, 1 in 110 kids in the U.S. will be diagnosed with autism. That is a huge jump from 30 years ago when it was 1 in 30,000.
Startling new report finds the number of children with autism is skyrocketing. The Centers for Disease Control estimates 1 in 68 children has a form of autism. Now that's a 30% increase in just 2 years.
Well, a lot of this with all the accomplishments over the last 20 years, I'm thrilled.
I think what kept me was the feeling that, you know, I would have a parent come to my office late at night at UCLA and just fall apart. And this is a long time ago, and there were much less back then in terms of services and knowledge and so on. And I would just sit with the family and the parents and walk them through and try to take away some of their fears, you know. And at that point I realized, I think the thing that's actually most important to me is that process. I mean, thank God that I've been very, very lucky and blessed to have so many incredible clinicians join me along the way and just develop CARD in such an amazing, magnificent way that I could, you know, for me it was more really about how can I help the families? What can I do for the moms, the dads, you know? It is just, and I feel like, you know, there's no way I would ever really know because I haven't had my own child go through this, but I've experienced it with people a lot of times.
Hi, this is Megan. I'm in first grade all by myself. My teachers are so fabulous. I like to read books. I like to go to my friends' birthday parties. I like to invite my friends to my birthday parties. I once had a sleepover with a friend. I like to have play dates with my friend. I'm the best reader in my class. I like to go to the library. I like to read different series of books. And here's how I learned to do all these things. By my card friends and Dr. Granpeesheh. Thank you, card friends and Dr. Granpeesheh.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen and Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, and she's answering your questions live. I want to go to a question that has a little bit to do with diet, which we were just talking about during the break. Hello, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. My 4-year-old daughter has high-functioning autism, SPD, selective mutism, OCD, and severe anxiety. She has always been a great eater and enjoys a variety of food. I've been studying a lot about methylation, detoxification in autistic children, special diets, and biomedical intervention. I read something that resonated with me and wanted your perspective on it. My daughter drinks a ton of milk. And when I say a ton, I mean a ton. I've tried switching to almond milk or coconut milk, and she absolutely loses her mind. Do you think that cow milk has an opiate effect on kids with ASD? What can I do to switch her over to a milk substitute without causing endless meltdowns and SIB, self-injurious behavior? Thanks so much. And this is coming to us from our West Virginia mom.
I am like so happy that you wrote in. I want to come to your house and get rid of all the milk. Okay, like I'm very, very like strong. I have strong emotions about this. So I want to tell you that my son, who's a very lovely and awesome human being, typically developing and is about to graduate high school in a month, when he was like 2 or so, I think it was around. Anyway, when he was 1, I started worrying because, you know, me, and I'm like, why isn't he developing enough language? It's slightly below. And, you know, I was comparing him to his very, very precocious sister, who's a few years older. But anyway, I was kind of getting worried. And our household was multilingual, and I was worried and all this. So I put together a program for him and kind of got his speech underway. And that was fine. And then within 6 months, the program wasn't necessary anymore. Right. But at the same time, so his speech was like, wasn't coming in the way that it should, but it was very mild. And the other thing that I noticed was that he had like really dark rings around his eyes, and he very gradually stopped eating. He just like would become more and more picky, and then all he wanted was milk. And he particularly like went crazy if you gave him chocolate milk, but milk was it for him. And I'm not a big, at that time, this is, 17 years ago, I wasn't all into like, my kids also, like all kids. And then as time went on, I learned more and more and more. And it has nothing really to do with being ASD or not. It has to do with the fact that the milk from our cows is very toxic. It has, not only is it toxic, not only are our cows like shot up with everything you can imagine to the point where American beef is not allowed to be exported in many Western countries. So, we know for a fact that they are toxic. But the other part of it is also that we're talking about casein, and casein is a type of, which is the protein in milk, which is a type of protein that's very, very hard to break down. And that is the most important thing. We often don't think about why there is the casein and gluten-free diet that exists and that is so important for so many people, not individuals with ASD. Although I want to credit the ASD world for changing that and making that more something that we're all aware of. But the truth is that casein is not digestible, not beneficial to many of us. Over 80% of us have some sort of intolerance for casein, or we can't even break it down properly, which essentially means that if you can't break something down properly, that means two things. It means that you eat something and you generally will try, your body will attempt to break it down and absorb and receive nutrition from that item. And so with casein, with milk, what happens is that we break it down partially. So we break it down to peptide level. And if you can think of peptides are a chain of amino acids, and peptides sort of, it's the protein in milk is broken into first these chains and then individual amino acids. And that has to happen in order for us to benefit from the individual amino acids. If you don't, and if you just break down to the level of a peptide, then you are essentially, your body and your brain is receiving peptides. And peptides from casein have the ability they're very similar in shape and form as endorphins. And endorphins are what your body produces, which makes you feel kind of very happy and high and, like loopy, or just like when you run a marathon, you produce endorphins. It's kind of a very like energized, happy feeling, but yeah, it's sort of spacey. right? And so there's a direct link that casein peptides will resemble our endorphins enough to mimic them, for our body to think, whoa, I just drank something and I'm like loopy and high and so on. So yes, it has a very direct effect in terms of your attention and an opiate effect. That's the peptide effect that we're talking about. So now what do you do? So yes, I feel very strongly, I took milk away from my son and the whole family, and let me tell you, his appetite increased immediately. He started just being much, much more of a healthy and social individual, and we haven't had milk since then.
But for a couple of days, when you took milk away,
it's a nightmare.
Like when you take away opium from an opium addict,
it's
you're
a nightmare.
going to have a mess for a couple of
days.
So
there's two ways to go about this. One way is just to cut it out. Okay, you cut it out. I don't care. Your child is 4 years old. What are they going to do? They're going to cry, and eventually fall asleep. The next day might be the same. Cry. Eventually it'll be gone. In 2 to 3 days, it's over. And my recommendation for replacing is almond milk. It's very easy to replace with almond milk or coconut milk, both, whichever she prefers. Now, another way to do it, if you really kind of don't want to tough it out, is to do a gradual replacement, and you need to be very regimented about this. So you need to write this down and do it perfectly right. So you first measure how much milk she's drinking. So you say a ton, but you need to have exact ounces. So let's assume she's drinking 50 ounces of milk, which is really a ton. So you will put 50 ounces of milk in various containers for a day. And then the next day you'll make it 49 ounces of milk mixed with 1 ounce of almond milk. So she won't even taste it. The second day you have now 2 ounces of almond and 48 ounces of cow's milk, and so on and so forth. And over the course of 50 days, she will not even realize that you have now replaced her milk with almond milk. So that is the gradual way to do it, and it really depends on your life conditions and so on. But the reason that I say be regimented about this is that we get lazy. When it's over the course of 50 days, we tend to forget, we might mess things up, and then this delays the process. Obviously, you can also do it a slightly faster schedule, like you could do 2 ounces of almond milk and 48 on the first day, 4 ounces on the second day, and so on. But how you do it is up to you, but that's the shaping schedule. Either way, I highly recommend you do it. It will make a difference, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if when you stop it a little bit, they're giving that big of a reaction, then the benefit is probably
just as big.
Yeah, just as big. And I'm excited for you about when that happens.
Me too. And please write back and tell us.
And I don't know how you feel about this, but I will say this is that, when I hear from a lot of families that they'll start the gluten casein with one or the other, and that was certainly the case with us. We started just taking the gluten out because I didn't know about the casein. And then like a month later, we took out the casein. And I've seen families do it the opposite too, but if you see that one has a pretty big effect, usually the other one has an equal effect too. So once you take out the milk, you might want to look at the gluten.
Interesting.
I know you don't really want to hear that. But there's so many gluten-free things that are available. They're not all healthy, I'll say that, but it's not as hard as it used to be.
It really isn't. It's pretty amazing. My daughter, Shannon, as you know, decided to do a paleo diet and gluten-free and all this sort of stuff, and I started learning a lot more back into nutrition, and it's so much easier. Oh my gosh, like all you have to do is go to places like Sprouts and so on, and everything is available to you.
Oh yeah, it's amazing, all the things that are available. So that's an adventure. And for people who do see a positive effect for gluten and casein, not everyone does. We just have to be honest about that. Not every kid that tries it gets a bang for it, but the people who do, we swear by it. My child he had lost all of his vocabulary, all of his words, all of his functional communication, and once we took gluten and casein out, we were gaining 5 words a day, and then it mushroomed into the the chatterbox that he is now, with a lot of ABA therapy. But I've always said that if we had just done ABA therapy and not done the gluten and casein, I do not think we would have had the progress that we had. That set us up for success.
And that's just really important, because I often tell people, like, you know, you flip on the switch when you do these dietary interventions. It's also, it's kind of like, oh, there's light, I can learn. And then the ABA really like helps the child catch up with what he didn't pay attention to before.
And you mentioned it's not just people on the autism spectrum. We had two therapists at one point decide that they were going to do the GFCF diet because Jem was.
Yes.
And it was amazing to watch those two people, because one of them said, suddenly it's like the world is in color.
Yes.
And I didn't realize that it wasn't exciting. And the other one in the process was like, oh, well, you know, I don't know that it's that big of a deal. And then decided to go back to gluten and eventually found out that she had celiacs. She was in so much pain when she went back to the gluten. And she said, I would never have realized that.
No, you know, it's amazing. And I don't know what it is in my family, but it's crazy. Like, my kids really, really react to gluten. And my son now will not. He himself will avoid casein. Like, it's amazing. He's an adult now almost, but he'll ask me. The other day we were at the store and there were these like beautiful bottles of, you know, the glass bottles that make milk look so attractive. And he was like, oh, these are going to taste like the milk in Europe. And I was like, it's probably true. And he was like, but are they casein free or something, lactate free? And I was like, no, you know, they're real cow's milk. You're going to have to stick with the coconuts.
And there we are. I would have liked to have gotten to more questions, but we had a good time. And we appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much.
So
pleasure
thrilled
always
that we had this time. It is time for us to say goodbye to you, though. We're going to go to the A word. When we come back, we have with us Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson from Autism Care and Treatment Today for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We have two guests today, both who are authors of fiction books in which autism characters figure very strongly. So all of that's coming up, and some news and some updates. Stick with us, but first, here is the A word.
This is Jack's morning routine. He just got out of bed. He's a happy guy. He's sitting with Dad, drinking some milk, watching some tunes. Hi, Jack.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How old are you, Jack?
2.
How old are you, Jack? Can you say good morning? Good morning. Good morning. Good. That's good. That's good. Sometimes he arranges the coins lately. He's been used to just put them straight in the piggy bank, and now he likes to play with them and arrange them. Nice.
Job. Say more. Oh, good. That was a good M. Nice building. Good. More. Here you go. Yeah, we definitely want his scores to increase with him talking more. Because he knows everything and he knows what everything is, but you're just getting him to independently ask for things. Because we want to get him to man for things. At least
What are you saying? What's the word you use?
Manned.
Manned?
Manned.
As in
like requesting. So he can say like the object, like he can say train, or he can say more, or he can say all done, anything to communicate with you. Because he has a language, but I don't think we give him enough opportunities to ask for things or request for things.
That makes sense. We just have to require it more.
Yeah, and then after that we'll move into more frames such as like I want train, I want this.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I have Dad hold the train, and then have to ask Daddy.
Daddy's
Look,
here.
Daddy has the train. So Mike, have him ask you for the tracks. You can even just hold it out in front of him, and then he'll even ask you.
More?
Okay. So here we go. Yeah, good talking. Very good. I've never seen him play train so intricately before.
He's been pretty much daily. He's asked for his train once.
Can you say give me? Okay.
Thank you. Good talking.
There
Good
you
talking,
go.
buddy. Good asking. Good asking.
Yeah, definitely his 2 syllables are just coming along really well.
Yeah. I mean, most of them are approximations, but they're the same every time. He's a little sedate today, actually. I'm surprised. excuse me. He gets concerned when I sneeze and cough. Daddy, are you okay? Yeah, I'm okay.
Oh,
See that?
that's the closest it sounded.
Cheryl taught on that.
Cute, Dad.
Can you say I love you? That's I love you. Same every time. It's kind of like yellow, but yellow doesn't melt us like that.
Hi, we're going to be working on some pictures. Let me get your picture first. What is it? Pants. Very good. Here you go. Here you go. He's doing a lot of imitating things, and in clinic the other day, we noticed that every time he said, "Look at me," he'd repeat it, but in his own way, so it comes out as "baby." So every time he goes, "Look at me," he's like, "Baby, baby." What is it? Pants. Hey, over here, look at me. Look at me. No, over here, look at me. Right here, there we go. That is a train. We'll play with it in just a second, okay? Hey, look at me. Now look at me. Right here, there are your eyes. What is it? Pants. Okay, you can go. Good job. Okay, go play. Do you want the book or the trains? Book or trains? Trains. Okay, good. Go play. Go play with your trains. Go ahead. You can go play now. Oh, you want to look at the pictures? More? More pictures? Here, you can look at the pictures. Here, want to show Suzanne what you know? How about let's look at the ones that you do know? Those are the ones that you don't know. Bunny. Wow, this is a lot more than I thought. What's that one? Chicken.
Oh, this one. Da 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 da.
Shop. You are so smart. Tiger. Tiger.
Nice.
Good job. Okay, what else? What's this one? Ellie. Oh, it's getting closer. Elephant. It's getting closer. Lion. Lion. You do know a lot of animals.
Between last week and today, Jack is able to label more cards. He's interested in identifying the images and consequently building his vocabulary. As the weeks progress in his ABA therapy, so has his skills. In 2 months, he's gone from babbling to enunciating certain words clearly. With prompting, he's able to practice appropriate speech when playing and requesting objects. Eventually, the prompting will fade and he will do it on his own. Each new skill acquired builds on the previous one.
You're interested again? Here, why don't you go over there? Go over here and you can see better.
Train.
What's that?
Train.
Ooh, you want to move it for me? Show me your train.
See, choo-choo. Yeah, move it.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod.
And we are going to get right into our first guest before we get to end the news. We'll come back with that. We are very pleased to have via Skype Dr. Joanne White. Dr. Joanne White, PhD, is an international award-winning best-selling author and speaker. She's a certified professional coach and energy master, and she is known globally as the Success Doc, and she's the executive producer and host of the Power Your Life TV and radio shows, and she has an extensive background with children with special needs. She taught special needs, adjunct instructor in the special education department at Temple University, and you also have headed up executive director of a program for children and youth with special needs in Bancroft in New Jersey. Welcome, Dr. Joanne White.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to have you. Dr. White, we're here today to focus predominantly on your new book, which is called More Heaven Because Every Child is Special. Tell us, why did you write this book?
Actually, the first draft was written many years ago when I was teaching these children, and I was piloting a program for the Philadelphia school district and the school system. And what was happening during that time was that many children with autism and special needs were not allowed in public school or were kicked out of public school. All the public schools had to say was that these kids were too severely disabled, or whatever the terminology was, and they were let off the hook. So there was a federal mandate that came out that said that school systems throughout the United States had to figure out what to do to serve these kids, and I was hired as the first teacher. I did not intend to write the book, but it's just interesting because it was very guided. I kept waking up in the morning when I was teaching these kids, and I was keeping notes on the children, and there was a voice in my head that was one line about the little girl who's called Eva in the book, who was the first student. And finally I said, okay, I get it, I hear you. And I started to write the book, and I wrote it, and the words and everything just came. And the reason, I believe, is to show, at that time, was to show people how wonderful these kids are, and to really promote more acceptance and understanding and contact, because it's very different today. But at that point, at that time, many of these kids were also ostracized. Physicians would say to parents that they should be institutionalized because they didn't know what to do with these kids. One of the children that was in the program was actually previously she was autistic, she was previously put in a school for the deaf, and she was not deaf.
So we're having a little technical difficulty. We have a still of you up right now, Dr. White.
Well, I think what was happening is that sometimes we don't see it beforehand, but your camera was going on autofocus, Dr. White. And so if you have an opportunity, we have a still of you now. If you have an opportunity to take it off of autofocus while you're talking to us, if that's, we could take a break if we needed to. But
I can't do that right now.
That's okay. That's okay, because we have a still of you up, and it's okay. It just looked like somebody was running around your living room with a camera for a moment. But we were enjoying it thoroughly, but we were all starting to get a little seasick, and we wanted to focus on what you were saying. I just want to backtrack a little bit and let people know that, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is a fiction book told from the point of view of the teacher who's in the classroom and deals with a group of students. And as you were saying, I understand completely that you wanted people to know about how remarkable these students are. But one of the things I think happens is that one of the things that we get from it is how remarkable the teacher is and how caring they are about these children. Have you heard other people say that?
Yes. A lot. I had gone for. I was really initially going to go to school for English literature and writing, and when I was about 17, I worked in a camp program, and there were a couple of children with special needs, and I fell in love with these children, and I changed my career. So the whole book, and even working with these children, was an act of love, really, because they were incredible, and they were labeled unteachable, which is so far from the truth. The reason it's fiction, because initially it wasn't going to be fiction, it was going to be nonfiction and just tell the true story. And it is based on my experience of teaching these kids and based on real children. However, I wanted to be able to get inside these children's heads, and the only way to present that, as you see in the book, is to, who am I to presume what's going on in somebody's head? So I had to make it fiction to be able to do that. And within the story are little stories of their own little, these children and their own little journey as they go from fear and ostracism to feeling more social, to learning academically, to feeling more treasured, and so their inner dialogue changes just as the outside experiences are changing for them as well.
And I appreciate that, but I also appreciate that you get to go on the journey with the teacher of how she finds the way to teach them. And I think for a lot of autism parents, like, we'd love to know what's going on in our teacher's head, and I think there's something healing about knowing how much they think about our children and how much they care about them. I think that's a really wonderful side benefit of your book.
I agree.
Wonderful.
What kind of challenges do you still see for children with special needs, and also young adults and adults with special needs, that you feel need to change?
Well, I actually wrote a book, an ebook called Bully Free, whereby I interviewed families and parents and children and adults with special needs, and some of the stories about how still going on within the school systems, not being accepted, not getting the right educational programs. And there was even one very poignant story that a mother was sharing with me through the interview, whereby it wasn't even in the school, it was in a recreational outdoor playground, and there were a few girls making fun of her autistic son, who just wanted to be liked, and so they were asking him to do stupid things, and he didn't recognize that they were stupid. He felt, well, these young girls are paying attention to me. A stranger came up to them because the mother was busy and told those girls to stop it. And the mother went inside she said she went inside the bathroom and she had to cry.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's filling me up.
We both had experiences with bullying of our children, and shaming, and having our children being made fun of. And you're obviously on a show where you have viewers today that probably experience that quite a bit. Do you find that with the kids themselves, that with the neurotypical children, that a lot of them are becoming more aware and are changing their attitudes about our special needs, specifically those kids with autism?
Yes, I am. And again, part of that reason is because some of the incredible parents of children with autism and special needs are helping to do that by bringing their children out. Another person that I interviewed started to work for a school system in New Jersey, and she goes into the schools and she brings atypical and typical children together and just brings them together so that they can socialize. And what's so interesting is when you go back so many years ago, parents and the school system and everybody was so afraid that, what are you doing if these kids actually even come in contact with the so-called typical children, what's going to happen? Well, research and everything else suggests just the opposite. It helps typical children grow in empathy and become leaders and really understand. And so I think it's a wonderful, wonderful experience when that's happening. And I say that the parents are my heroes, because many of them changed their careers, did what they needed to do to help change laws and to move legislation forward, and to decide, we have to be heard and our children come first.
So let's talk about where families can get your books. The new book, More Heaven Because Every Child is Special, and Bully Free. Tell us, Dr. White, where people can find the books.
Well, right now the books are on Amazon.com and also on Outskirts Press, and both of them are on Amazon.com. And also there's information, a lot of information about More Heaven on my website, drjoannewhite.com, drjoannewhite.com, and you can also purchase Bully Free there. More Heaven just came out, so it's not on my website yet, but it will be.
Okay, what's the overall message of the book, Dr. White, that you want readers to take from it?
Well, I think there are several, but one is that we still have a lot to do. Two is that these children are like us. Yes, they're different, and it's about really respecting and honoring and loving their differences and our differences, and being able to create a society, a world, a classroom, a playground, any place whereby children and adults can be respected and included, even if they're different, and vive la difference.
Love that. Now, in addition to your work with special needs, you are also known as the Success Doc. And for our parents who might be watching, who are interested in learning about how to be successful in business, where can they go to find out more information about what you do in conjunction with that?
Well, I have a different website that's called poweredbysuccess.biz, and there's also information on the drjoannewhite.com. They can email me, they can call me, whatever. We're always interested in feedback and in helping people. I think my whole life has been one of service, and that's what I've come here to do. I'm clear about that.
Well, how wonderful is that? We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
My pleasure. Thanks so much. Have a blessed day.
Thank you, Dr. White.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So we're going to take a break. We're going to come back with a little bit of in the news, and then a little bit in just a few minutes. We've got a wonderful dad, an autism dad, who's going to be with us with his son for an Autism Family Portraits. But he also has a book out that is a fiction book, but it's told from the point of view of an individual who's on the autism spectrum. So wonderful. All that coming up after these messages.
It's Nava and Matt Paskowitz-Asner, and we're here at the Autism Speaks 2016 walk.
We are, and there's probably about, I would say, 57,000 people out there. It's a sea of hope that we come to every year. We both have been here together. How many years have we been here together?
5 years, I think.
5 years together, and it's just, it grows and grows and grows, and it gets better and better and better. And I'm just really proud and honored to be a part of it.
Hi, I'm Dina Kimmel, CEO and founder of We Rock the Spectrum Kids Gym for All Kids. I've been at this walk for 6 years. This year was the best. We're a community sponsor this year, and we had 12 owners, okay, which we have 54 across the states now, but 12 owners in the booth, nonstop, spreading the word about the walk. It was amazing this year. The volunteers were bringing us water and fuel so we could do what we do best, and that is spreading the word about autism awareness and having a place where all kids belong together. This was the best year, so we thank you, Autism Speaks.
Hi there, this is Georgiana Junco-Kelman. I proudly serve on the Autism Speaks Southern California Board of Directors. And this is my absolute favorite day because this is where you begin to build your community. Families that have been recently diagnosed come to this day and find their people. They find resources, they find service providers, they find an organization that supports them, and they don't feel alone. So once you've been diagnosed and once you dive into this very daunting world of autism, you know there's always a place to come back to where you can have questions answered and you can be around people that get you. Autism Speaks is here to make sure that these families never feel alone. So this is such a super special day, and I am always such a proud part. So proud to be a part of it every single year.
Welcome back. We're going to do In the News, and we're doing things a little out of order because we have two guests and we wanted to make sure that they both had some time. And so two big stories for you this morning. The first one you guys probably have already seen. We've actually had Wendy Chung on the show before. She's the Director of Clinical Research for the Simon Foundation Autism Research Initiative. But they have a new study that is the largest of its kind. It's very exciting to those of us who've been saying for a long time, phenotype autism. This is when you're going to separate, because there's different types of autism, and figure out what they are for the potential to see if one type of autism responds better to something as opposed to something else. So there's a new initiative that's called SPARK. It's the Simons Foundation Powering Autism Research for Knowledge. The project is going to collect DNA and other information from 50,000 people with autism and their families, and then they're going to make that what they've gotten available to everyone. Now, there have been a couple of different organizations that have tried to do this. I'm very excited, and each time people are saying they're going to share the data that they get, because I think that that's critical, because not everybody can afford to do a study this big. This is going to be centered out of San Diego, and they're going to take the DNA from saliva samples, but there will be 21 universities that will be participating, and they're asking for people all around the country to participate. So I'm excited about this to see what happens. I hope it's not one of those things that we have to wait 10 years. Yeah. But you know what? Even if that is the case, 10 years would be worth it.
Right.
So excited about that. And then new news, I want to take just a second to say that so many of you wrote in and said how much you loved Thursday's show, and in particular the special edition of Let's Talk Autism that Nancy and I did, where we interviewed the producers of the controversial film Vaxxed, Del Bigtree and Polly Tomey. And this morning there was yesterday there was a very interesting thing that was released by Focus for Health. A statement by Dr. Brian Hooker. Dr. Brian Hooker, if you watched the interview that we did the other day, is the autism dad, and he's also a doctor and someone who's very experienced at looking at research and data. That's what he does for a living. Yeah. He was the person that the CDC whistleblower, William Thompson, contacted.
Yes, and to tell his story about
and said, I have data. Here's how you should get it, and then I'll go over it with you. And
told Dr. Hooker that CDC scientists had colluded to cover up a relationship between the timing of the MMR vaccine and autism in African Americans that was first discovered in November of 2001.
So on Dr. Hooker's website, and I had it up and Facebook went away on me. He said yesterday this morning when he posted it, I saw it this morning, that he has received information from the lawyer for Dr. Thompson. His CDC whistleblower lawyer has said that in the month of May, Dr. Thompson is going to release a statement in which he will say that the Afro-American effect that was visible in the documents that he gave to Mr. Hooker, Dr. Hooker, are caused by socioeconomic status.
Rather than a causal relationship between the timing of the vaccine. So essentially, he is, I guess, retracting the statements that he clearly made about the CDC and their collusion to cover up data, and also the statements he made warning the CDC director at the time, Julie Gerberding, regarding the relationship.
And it's important to say that we don't yet have Dr. Thompson's statement or paper, but it's Mr. Richard Morgan, Esquire, is the CDC whistleblower, has apparently said, he stated it to Dr. Thompson that he will be publishing it in May. And so Dr. Hooker has put out a statement in response to if in fact that is what Dr. Thompson does. And many people have been on the internet this morning saying if it is socioeconomic status that is creating that African American effect, then why does they list
Robert
people,
De Niro, Tony Braxton, Holly Robinson Peete.
Why did their children have, because if we're going to say that it's a money thing, why do these people who clearly don't have that issue, why do they still have children that are on the autism spectrum?
Yes, it's a very odd position, and of course we haven't seen it officially yet, but as you said, Dr. Hooker has made this official statement, so the controversy continues.
It
I
does.
would say, and it's very far-ranging and deep. And
Dr. Hooker goes through how many points? 6 points that he says I want people to remember, regardless of what he says in this other statement. Here are these 6 points that I want you to know. You can find that at www.focusforhealth.org. It's all listed there. And he says these facts remain, and here are the 6 facts. So some of them are very interesting. More questions. No answers, but more questions. It's heating up.
Heating up.
All right.
Okay, so we'll take a break.
We'll take a break.
And then we'll come back with our Autism Family Portrait. We have a great dad who's going to be joining us, and I believe his son is going to be joining us as well.
Yes, I believe that is the case as well. Paul Nelson.
Yes, and his son Micheal.
Yes.
Talking about his book and his
which is through
account.
Fisher. There's actually, it's a trilogy, but it's Through Fisher's Eyes is the one that we're talking about, and but it's the first of a trilogy. So all of that coming up.
Stay with us.
Nick was diagnosed with autism in 1994 at the age of 4. He received 5 years of therapy from CARD that eventually faded out. Nick recovered from autism in 2001.
The song I'm about to perform is by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. CARD helped many patients, myself, to recover to this level now.
Cheryl and Mike's son, Jack Riley, was diagnosed with autism in 2010 at age 2. He's been receiving therapy from CARD for a year and a half. Today, Cheryl, Mike, and Nick meet for the first time.
I'm curious as to what you remember.
I certainly remember pretty long sessions, and I'd be frustrated if I would make mistakes. I mean, I remember one time I had to count a row of 6 blocks, kept messing up. That was really difficult.
No. I need it, but I need it.
At what point do you recall hearing the word autism?
I was able to figure out what I was going through without anybody having to tell me.
Our concern is if it's a big secret to hide. I don't know what we can say.
No one ever told you, you just discerned
But the
it?
reason I'm comfortable talking about this is because I felt it. In therapy, I certainly began questioning why people reacted as they did based on what I said and did. Particularly because of difficulties I was facing in school. It got to a point where I wanted to understand why it was. I entered while still going through therapy and still showing significant signs of the mental condition. Even after I'd improved to a significant extent, there were those who still gave me a hard time for it.
Did it hurt your feelings when you were in school, the way that kids...
Oh, absolutely, because it was bullying, it was harassment.
That scares us.
They called me names. I was basically, when it came to sports and PE, I was usually the last kid chosen.
Did teachers intervene?
Fortunately, not really. I mean, it was just so hard for me to talk about it because of how ashamed I felt. Certainly the first few years of elementary school, I don't think I really had the most supportive teachers. I mean, I remember my mom told me how my first grade teacher once said that she thought I had no chance of getting anywhere. And going away to college and out of state and being the only person from my old school district has made a difference. It's just really improved my social life tremendously because I got to be me, because with nobody knowing about my past, I wasn't faced with these misconceptions and prejudgments.
Do you tell people, new people that you meet?
No, that's not the first thing I will ever
No, I would
tell
hope it's not the
and
first thing.
You know what? In most cases, I never do, because while it's a part of my past, it doesn't define who I am. I mean, just thinking back to the very beginning, pretty much each episode, autism, what, not who.
I want to tell you right now, though, I'm so impressed with you.
Likewise.
I want you to know that.
Likewise. I mean, your son really inspires me just as much, because I'll tell you, anytime
I adore him, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't challenging.
I mean,
it's cost me the stuff that like career things, goals. I don't care about those anymore. I work at night. I'm tending bar. Not that I'm too good for that. I'm just saying that's what I do. I want him to have a chance.
Right.
And you inspire me now.
Thank you. The feeling goes both ways. The feeling's mutual.
Before you leave today, we would like you to meet Jack.
I would love to.
This is Nick.
Hi, Nick.
Hey, Jack Riley.
All right, should we try this? I'm gonna try to take a picture of all of you. 1, 2, and 3.
Jack Riley, you rock.
And welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. As promised, we have our Autism Family Portrait segment. And today we're going to welcome Paul Nelson and his son Michael Nelson. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Hi, Paul and Michael. Hi. Michael, Paul, you are a middle school music teacher in Central Pennsylvania. And you are now raising, you're a widower, and you're raising your son by yourself now, Michael.
Right,
and
the last few years.
You are the author of what is going to be a trilogy of books, but we want to talk about Through Fisher's Eyes, one of your books today.
I have it right here.
Okay. Tell us what the book is about and what inspired you to write it.
Well, a couple of years ago when Cynthia, my wife, passed away, she was also disabled. She had lupus that moved into her brain. And of course, being a double caregiver, I found a lot of challenges, and I tried to find good ways to express some of those challenges that I had been through and some of the changes they had made in me, and also try to tell or give people a little enlightenment, especially about Michael's autism. Because we live in a very conservative area here in Pennsylvania, and conservative to the point where people here don't really care for ideas, and there's a lot of prejudice here and fear. So I decided after Cynthia died, I wanted to write some kind of book and talk a little bit about my experiences as a caregiver, and also hopefully maybe especially encourage kids to be a little more accepting and tolerant, not only of people with special needs like Michael, but of everybody. So that was really my main goal.
And the book is written from the point of view of a 17-year-old boy who's on the autism spectrum, correct?
That's right. I tried writing it from my point of view first, and it just didn't work. I tried a self-help book. I tried a novel from my point of view, and it just wasn't happening. And then one day I thought of the idea of trying to write from Michael's point of view and kind of made him the main character. So Through Fisher's Eyes, the first book, is really told through Michael's eyes and from his perspective.
And I find it particularly moving in the book that we get to see the process of how a 17-year-old on the spectrum views the death of a parent. And I don't know if you know this about Nancy, but Nancy just a couple of months ago lost her husband, and is now and was a caretaker for years. You and Nancy have a lot in common.
We do. We have a lot in common. I'm listening to this and just, it's really resonating with me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's hard, Nancy. So I sympathize. I think maybe you had the same experience. For me, it was years of going through the heartbreaking process.
Right.
And the end, I think I was pretty well prepared for Cynthia's death.
Right.
Because it went on for about 10 years.
As
really.
well, my husband had battled cancer for 22 years, so, but the later years were pretty tough.
I think, and maybe you can also tell, one of the things I wanted to express was the way you grow as a caregiver. You really grow a lot spiritually. I think you start to look at life a whole lot differently and see that, I kind of like there's a Buddhist idea that we're in a river and things bump into us in the river. We're just floating in it. And you have to let the things bump into you. Whether it's Michael's autism, my wife's illness, we had good and bad days. And I just kind of learned to embrace them all. And that's one of the things I wanted to try to pass on with these books is I see a lot of people right now getting upset over things that just don't seem to be that great. I think anybody who's been a caregiver can tell people that, things could be a lot worse.
Yes. Well, the affection between you and your son is so obvious. We see Michael putting his head on your shoulder, and obviously the love you have for him. Michael, it seems like you're trying to express yourself there to us. We understand you're a great artist.
You like art? Here, look up here. You like art? Yes. Like art? Yes. 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 He loves art class. He loves all types of art. Right now, he's also doing some computer art. He loves working with computers, so that seemed to be a natural thing to try. So his assistant Renee has been great in working with him on using his computer to do artwork as well. So we're hoping maybe computer graphics or something might be in Michael's future.
Very cool.
That's fantastic.
Let's journey back to the beginning, Paul. So how did you find out that your son had an autism spectrum disorder?
Well, Michael, like a lot of kids, was around 3, and we just didn't feel at the time that he was really talking much. That was the first clue. We were concerned. He wasn't speaking a lot, and by the time he was 2, he had really stopped talking. And we just decided maybe we aren't getting him out around others enough, so we put him into a preschool. We had a very good preschool just down the street, and he did well there, but right away, one of the women who worked there who had worked with autistic children thought we should have him diagnosed and evaluated. So we did, and it was almost immediate. We learned that he had autism right around age 3.
Okay. And your wife, was she ill at that time?
She was just starting to really feel the lupus, yes.
Okay, so you had a lot of challenges. How did you deal with that?
Well, I was also working, so I was very busy. I have to tell you, I think in my case, this probably sounds kind of crazy, but with Cynthia not only had lupus, she had a lot of mental problems as well. I learned later that she had been abused when she was a child, and she also had, I think partly due to her lupus, I think she had some mental disabilities. So my plate was so full with her. Michael was really pretty easy for the most part. And it wasn't until a little bit later that Michael started to have some fits and things. Michael was pretty easygoing around age 3. He was very quiet and very compliant, but it wasn't until he got to be around age 5 that we started to see some changes in behavior that got more difficult. So at first, Cynthia was devastated by the diagnosis, and I think a lot of women, mothers especially, blame themselves, get very guilty when they learn their child has autism. And of course, you just can't do that. There is no fault on the parents' part, unless they're abusing substances while they're pregnant, of course. But I think a lot of people I've talked to, the moms especially, feel very guilty about their kids having autism. So I was trying to work Cynthia through that, and for me, Michael's diagnosis didn't change things much. If anything, it made Michael and I closer.
Really? You consider it a blessing? In some ways.
Yes, I wish he had not been born with autism, but I guess if there's one thing I could pass on to people, after you work through the difficult emotions, and you should have some sadness and maybe even anger about your child having autism. But after you work through that, I think it's important to embrace the autism. Michael is my best friend, and he is funny, and he's a great person just the way he is.
What are your hopes and dreams for him? What are your hopes and dreams for him, Paul?
I would like to eventually see Michael in some kind of assisted living home where he could hold at least a part-time job, and I think Michael might be a professional artist at some point. We probably will eventually leave central Pennsylvania because it's not an area that's really encouraging for the arts. We're thinking about maybe North Carolina, maybe the Greensboro area, someplace that has more opportunity for Michael. And I hope I can be part of easing him into that. I certainly don't want Michael to disappear from my life. But I do, as a parent, I want to make sure he's cared for when I'm gone. So I would love to see him become as independent as possible, and I think he could be a successful artist.
You have a lot of belief in him.
I really do.
But the financial struggles have got to be tough in terms of making sure, that he's got what he needs.
It is always tough. Well, Pennsylvania is especially tough. This is an extremely low-income area. I'm very blessed to have a good job. However, so many parents of special needs kids in this area really struggle. And, of course, when you're a special needs parent, sometimes it's very hard to work. I'm lucky Michael can go to school when I do. We have similar schedules, so it works out very well.
So Michael's still in school? Where? Tell us about that.
He's going to go to school until he's 21, yes.
Okay.
A lot of parents, money is a problem. Getting good help for your child in this area can be a problem. The resources are very limited here. And again, that's one of the reasons I thought, well, maybe I could write books that might help people. And I'm really trying with these books to influence the way young adults, middle school and high school kids, see those with disabilities, because they don't really look at their abilities enough. Michael has tremendous abilities, and I just try to make people more aware of those.
Michael, Paul, you just seem so positive. And that whenever something bumps into you, as you say in the river, that you find a way to continue on. And I think that that's the hallmark of a true warrior parent. But for parents who aren't feeling that today, do you have any advice for them about how you get to that headspace?
Well, it's taken a long time. I'm 55. I've been through some rough times. And first of all, there is help out there. Find somebody, a therapist, or most of all, what people who have special needs children need is a buddy. Lots of people will keep a special needs parent and a special needs child kind of at arm's length because they're afraid. It's kind of like when somebody is dealing with cancer. Everybody you'd love to come around and visit stays away. So find a buddy, somebody you can talk to. If you need to get therapy and help with dealing with the anger or the frustration, do that. Reach out. Find every resource that's available to you. Most of all, though, I really think at some point you have to embrace your child's autism. Michael and I even joke about it. We'll say, hey, how's the autism doing today? And we rub his head, the autism spot. And, we really embrace it as part of our lives. It's almost like a family member. And I'm certainly not suggesting, be all chipper and just ignore it. That's not it at all. But you do have to embrace it and say, this is our life. This is what we've got. And at this point, if a cure came about, I don't know that I would want Michael to have a cure because he's very happy in his skin. So you do have to embrace the autism at some point and not be angry at it anymore.
Well, you're a remarkable person.
You are.
Michael, I understand that you are a big Mr. Rogers fan. I am too. You like Mr. Rogers?
Yes, I was a Mr. Rogers fan growing up. We aren't that far from where they filmed Mr. Rogers, and I'm a great. Actually, the last question you asked me, I think Fred Rogers epitomized how to embrace life and all its challenges, and also how to be respectful. Fred Rogers spoke to kids with respect to teach them to be respectful. So I'd recommend to any autistic child or parent watching Mr. Rogers. We have Netflix, and Mr. Rogers is a regular part of our life, and I think he has a lot of great lessons to teach.
He sure does, and we understand Michael likes Dr. Seuss, and there's some great lessons there too, aren't there? Michael, do you like Dr. Seuss?
Dr. Seuss. Dr. Seuss. Which one? Cat in the Hat. Cat in the Hat.
Oh, that's a classic.
Yesterday was green eggs and ham, so you never know. Depends on the day.
Right. My son loves Dr. Seuss as well, very much. And he's an artist like you, Michael.
I want to go back to the book because so we can tell people where they can get the book, and then when does the second one come out?
Actually, the second one is done. I have it here. It's called Dark Spectrum. The first one is Through Fisher's Eyes. They are both available at Amazon and also on Amazon Kindle. $7.99 for the paperbacks and $2.99 for the Kindle. The second one is really aimed at boys, young adult boys, who in this area I think have a lot of trouble dealing with people with disabilities. As I said, there's a lot of old world racism, bigotry here, so I'm trying to break through to younger men there. So it's got a lot of ghosts and demons, and the Battle of Gettysburg is in there because I love Civil War history. So the second one, Dark Spectrum, is a lot of people have told me they really liked it. As far as being a fun story, even better than the first one. But they're both available at Amazon, and they're also on Kindle.
So they're not necessarily, excuse me, Shannon, they're not necessarily aimed at a special needs audience.
No, I tried to write them for anybody, and a number of adults have told me how much they enjoyed them, and I think they appeal to just about anybody. They're really kind of designed for middle school age and up.
And have you read the books with Michael?
Yes, and he's actually in the first book a lot. There are a lot of things that have happened to us in the first book, true stories and little humorous things. There's a scene he really likes me to read to him. It's one day, a couple of years ago, I was getting cleaned up, and I realized the clothes I needed were downstairs in the dryer. And I decided to streak downstairs in the buff, and see, he's laughing right now. And as I got to the bottom of the stairs, Michael locked the door, and the only way back up into the house was out through the front. And I heard Michael running off through the house out to the back, so I came up and pounded on the top of the door for a while, and finally he let me back in. But that's a favorite story. He likes me to read that part to him.
Finds a lot of humor in that. Well, you certainly are an inspiration, both of you. And do you have any parting thoughts you'd like to leave with our viewers today, most of whom are raising children with autism?
I guess the best way I can say it is if you're going through a really challenging time, I'm not going to tell you try to be all perky and chipper. Go ahead and feel bad when you need to feel bad, but don't close yourself in. One of the best things you can do is get yourself and your child out, whether it's a trip to Walmart or out just taking a walk. Be around people. We need not only to be out there around people so we feel better, it's very good for everybody out in society to see what a rich, full life people with special needs have and how much they have to offer us. So we're doing a real service as parents of special needs kids when we get our kids out there. And it makes us feel a lot better. Don't be shy. Let your child be your child, and get your child out into the world.
Wonderful advice. You're such an inspiration. We thank you, Paul Nelson, and we thank you, Michael, for being with us.
It's great having you on our show.
We encourage everybody to get and read Through Fisher's Eyes. You can find it on Amazon, and then you can read the second book. but start with Through Fisher's Eyes. Thank you so much.
And good luck with the third one.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Paul. Bye, Michael.
Bye, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. What an inspirational dad.
Amazing.
Absolutely wonderful. All right, we're here at the end of the show. Do we have time for a quick break, Kelby? Not really. We don't have time for a quick break.
Not really, but we can, whatever that means, Kelby.
Let's not.
Okay. Wow, that got to me. Got a tissue?
Know. I do have tissues. And anyway, at the end here, I just wanted to give a quick discussion about this weekend. Saturday, where we're
big
all
weekend
be,
for Act Today.
Yes. Do you want to talk about it? Or you want me to talk about it?
Yes, we have our Act Today for Military Families Run and Festival, sponsored by One Hope.
Yes.
And the festival is sponsored by Lineagen and CARD. And Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh has offered, if you're a military family and you can't afford to enter, she will pay for your
You come
way
to the run.
to come to the run.
You come to the run. You go to the sign up and you say, "I can't afford the entrance fee," and she will happily pay that for you.
She'll be there.
And so Nancy will be there. I'll
be there. Shannon
Dr.
will be
Granpeesheh
there.
will be there.
Wyatt will
Kelby.
be there. Jem will be there.
Yes, it's
Kelby will be there.
Everybody will be there, and it's
so much fun too.
Yes.
Even we encourage you to come, and if you don't want to do the 10K or the 5K, do the fun run. Go to our website, act-today.org. That'll lead you to the page, Quintera, to sign up. It's such a great event. There's a fabulous rock band that plays afterwards. There's a festival, a family festival with all kinds of vendors and food. And we have the One Hope wine tent, which is a big hit with all the Marines and the.
It's really a fun day, but it's all over by 11 o'clock. So you come out in the morning, you do a little bit of exercise.
And CARD has a kid zone.
Yes.
With ABA therapists who will
and a bunch of bubbles. Imperial Bubbles have given us some bubbles, so we'll be bubbling it.
So parents can leave their kids there to have fun and come on over and have a glass of wine after the run. Running and wine. It's perfect.
Be there or be square. Yeah. All right. So we thank all of our guests today. I thank you, Nancy, for being here. Don't forget, we have a live show tomorrow. Fabulous, fabulous guests, including the Miracle Project, with a bunch of the performers from the Miracle Project here with us in the studio.
They've got a big performance.
So absolutely.
And
another great book tomorrow about just simple ideas, one-page simple ideas of things to do with our kids. For those of us who are like, I don't know, great ideas.
I want
great
to read
book
that.
Okay. You're going to love it. So in any case, so that's tomorrow. I have no idea. I think we're past time now.
5 seconds. Okay.
Give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me. I'll see you next week. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.